Hello, students in Marketing 326. My name is Steve Kramer, UNCG Business Librarian, here by request of Professor Huang to give you an introduction to research you should do to pursue the project for this class. I'm actually going to do this in two videos. First one's going to focus on the company. Second one's going to focus on the markets and industry aspects. And on the research guide, which I will now share, I made a pretty short research guide I'm going to show you right now before we get into some database searching. And this video is going to just cover part one here, looking at the 4 companies that your teams are focusing on. But just kind of a context here, we're going to conclude by looking at SWOT analysis or talking about SWOT analysis research. And I just want to emphasize, as you probably already know, that strengths and opportunities focus on internal aspects. So this is about your company. Strengths and opportunities is about your company. But then you get into weaknesses and threats, that's external. So competition, markets, industry, technology trends, that's going to be what you focus on for those 2 parts. But today, focusing on companies and therefore strengths and opportunities as the main 2 topics as we look at your 4 companies. These links are live, but I'm actually going to just work off of the links I have here. And for example, let's do Instacart first. Of the 4 companies, Instacart is the only one that's private. We have a database called Privco that does actually try to find financial data on private companies. Normally you don't get this data, but they do research on this. I already logged in, so you're skipping that page, but if you are starting from scratch, you can come in as a guest or create an account. And it's pretty simple to use. Type in Instacart, look for the hit, and there you go. And you can download the report once we see it using the little tear sheet PDF icon over here in the top right. Description of the company comes up first, emphasizes that privately owned. And they do try to do some financial research using different strategies. Sometimes lawsuits happen and some data gets reported to the courts, or they use M&A activity, merger acquisitions activity, or they also use funding, like when venture capitalists get involved. Sometimes some of those deals get publicly acknowledged in some ways, and therefore Privco has some financial data about this otherwise privately held company. Among other information, note that Maple Bear actually owns it as a holding company. Sometimes you see that name come up, and it's not that relevant probably for this class, but there's funding data and deals data as well. But for a privately held company, this financial data is as good as you can get. You're not going to find anything else really because it's privately held. They don't have to release their data to the public. So that's Privco, and that's where you should go for Instacart financial data. Now the other 3 here are more specific. LG and Peloton are publicly traded, 2 of them Korean, 1 in the United States. So let me give you 2 options for researching those 3 companies. First one's going to be Emergent Online. Emergent covers, I should add, this, like Privco, is a library database. So we pay money for it, a lot of money for these things. It's free to you, thanks in part to you paying tuition. Thank you for that. You would log in from home. I'm at home right now. I logged in already. So there's a cookie on my computer, on my web browser that's letting me in automatically. But you'll see at some point a page to come in with your username and password from UNCG, and then you get in. So just for example, let's look up Peloton, type the name of the company or its ticker symbol. And you want Peloton Interactive, not the minerals company. This database covers every public company in the world for the most part. Massive amount of details here. I could spend a lot of time on this. I'll try not to. Highlights though, financial data is in here, company financials. I'm going to change to income statement, and let's do all years. There's actually not that many years because it only went public a few years ago. And refresh. And just for example, notice that reads from right to left, which I think is annoying and not typical, but that's how they do it. 2017, 2020, notice revenue has gone up dramatically, right? Which is, really good, right? 1.4 billion in sales or revenue in 2020, because you add 3 digits to each of these numbers because they're in thousands, that's units. But just by the way, notice down below we have net income or loss. If it's in parentheses, it's a loss. And they've never made money yet. Even 2020 with 1.4 billion in sales, they lost $71 million. So not saying this isn't a bad company, but it's a startup and it's trendy. And often startups don't make money, even though they're popular and their stock does well. So just bear that in mind. Don't get too carried away, when you praise or not the financial health of this company. There is stock data which you can get from public places as well, like Google Finance and Yahoo Finance, but that's here too. Among other options, let me though show you another example. Let's switch and make sure I spell it right. Let's do a more Pacific. You want a more Pacific group in this case. And like we had for Peloton, same kind of content. Let me make one note here to make sure that I have this on video. Merchant being a global database normally does local currency. So this is in Korean money. Therefore, let's do what we did before for Peloton income statement, and maybe 10 years. But notice I can change currency so I can quote the numbers and have it make more sense to a US-based audience or US-based class like you're in. So refresh, and now we'll get at least 10 years of data using international accounting standards. And you can see in revenue in 2018, they're a little bit behind, maybe because of how the Korean public companies have to record their data. 5.4 billion in revenue. Unlike Peloton, they actually make money, 337 million in profit. So that's a difference. And the other categories are there as well. Finally, for LG, this is quirky. Actually, I've complained to Mergent and they're working on it. You can't find LG Electronics using the basic search, which is unusual. But if you do this, you can come up with them pretty easily. Go to country, pick Korea, because they're a Korean-based company, like a more Pacific. And of course, we want South Korea. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on my alphabet here. There we go, Korea South. And we get a lot of hits, that's fine. Now we can filter these results to LG Electronics. LG is a pretty complicated company in terms of its organization, its corporate hierarchy. And we actually need checking my notes here, we need the LG Electronics Inc. as the active public company among the other types of other locations and other subsidiaries of LG. And there we go. And like we did for more Pacific, I would probably want to change the currency here to US dollars. Otherwise, it works the same as well. And there's other data here as well for LG. Okay, so that's Mergent. Super detailed financial data, other descriptive information, ownership. I could spend a lot of time on this, but I'm trying to be fairly succinct. So definitely explore and see what else you can find here. Another option, though, is Nexus Uni. And may not do all three here just to save time, but let me just show you how to find public companies in this effectively. It's a big database, a lot of different content. There's legal information, there's news, but we want the company dossier is the most efficient way to get started. So up here in menu, company dossier, get a different search page. And just for example, we'll do a more Pacific. Make sure I spelled it right, I think I did. It only gives you 3 hits the first time, and I misspelled it, didn't I? Well, maybe that's a lesson that just be careful with your spelling. There we go. There's more hits because there's subsidiaries, there's private divisions, but usually one of the first 3 is what you need. So here it is, publicly traded company. That's good. And in this case, you will see, and it was a little slow earlier today. We'll see how quick it is today. In the left side, all the different types of filters, aspects of this company that you can get, including news sources, sometimes industry reports, list of top competitors can come up in some of these links here. So explore and see what you can find in these different links, and other financial data too. If you prefer a different format for financials, you can try that here versus what we had in Mergent. And once this processing finishes, I'll show you what's on the first page, and then maybe I'll move on to our final source in this company video. There we go. So just core data summarized here. That's actually it. So more descriptions though, and then definitely click on the other tabs here to see what else you can find about this company. And likewise, LG Electronics is pretty easy to find. Just type in LG Electronics in the company dossier search. And also Peloton also has reports in here too. And you can search that just by company name search. using the dossier, as I mentioned. And once this financial overview shows up, I'll just have you look at that for 5 seconds, and I'll move into our final topic here, which is an important one, because it gets more into strategies. As you can see, this is financial research, it's descriptive data, it's not necessarily analysis like strategies or trends or forecasting, where someone actually makes a prediction about or makes an evaluation. This is more descriptive, not evaluative. So we need to show you one other source that does that. And I'm kind of getting impatient here, waiting for the financials to open up. Trust me, they'll come here, they're beautiful. You can download them, it works just fine. So let me give up on this, apologize for that. Finally, as noted here on the PDF, to really get into strategy, supply chain issues, other aspects, evaluation, Business Source Complete is a good source for that. And you can click on the link there in the PDF, or also just come back to the research guide here in alphabetical order, there it is. And this you can keep kind of simple. And this applies to Instacart as well. So both private and public companies work here just fine. So just Peloton, just keep it simple. I don't need to get fancy and search. It will do a relevant search. It will usually give us current stuff first, but if I only want to see new stuff, I can definitely slide it over and say I only want 2020 to today. So that'll just be a year and 2 months worth. And just notice some of these titles. Can Peloton keep up the pace from Fortune? Peloton wants to be more than a pandemic fad from Business Week, Bloomberg. There's a couple of different versions of the Fortune article because there's also an Asian and a Europe Fortune magazine. What makes it successful? I mean, this is good stuff. So now we're getting into analysis, evaluations, forecasting, learned opinions, critical judgments, and expert opinions. And this is a good way to add commentary to what you need to do in this class, in addition to the financial research you need to do using those other databases we looked at already as well. For a bigger company, such as LG Electronics, you will see some other content that you probably want to look at if you've got a company like LG. This also applies to a more Pacific. And for example, SWOT analysis may come up as it does for LG, and also would for a more Pacific if you looked at that. This comes from a company called MarketLine. And this, as you can see, is simply a SWOT analysis. There's your matrix, with then paragraphs explaining about each point they're making. You can use this. If you use it though, cite it, of course, but note your SWOT gets more detailed than this and more focused. So this is a guide, and you can use it as a source, but this is not just the beginning and ending of your research. This is another way to do a SWOT, but you aren't just going to reproduce this, of course, in your report. You can cite it though, or paraphrase it in some ways if you need to. So just be aware that Business Source Complete, I did that too quickly, I didn't want to close this yet, does give you SWOT analysis for big companies, including a more Pacific and LG, not Peloton. Peloton's too new, too niche, and not Instacart being a private company. Let me conclude with that though, because you can still use good research in this database for a private company. Can it deliver from February, March 2021, Bloomberg article about wasn't ready to be successful as it is? That's right, but notice too, they actually cut a lot of people in January of this year. Why? Union concerns, they use contractors a lot. That's a controversial issue now. It's having contractors, not employees, with benefits. So I encourage you, if you are doing Instacart, look at this issue. It's a major issue, a strategic issue, as well as maybe ethical issue, among other things as well. And I could, of course, once again, change the dates. I can get fancy with searching if I wanted to, using the filters here. Maybe I only want to look at trade publications. Those are industry journals, industry-specific magazines, in other words, like Progressive Brochure and Chain Drug Review, industries in which Instacart competes. But you don't have to. You can still get good stuff just by doing a basic search, and then maybe a date limiter if you want to. And that's it for the company video part 1. Again, these fall under opportunities and strengths. Don't put company aspects, don't put financial research about a company and weaknesses and threats. That's for external factors, which I'll get to in my second video. I hope that's useful. As always, on my research guide, you've got over on the right side, my email link, chat box. If it's blue, I'm logged in. If it's yellow, it's our main information desk, who are very helpful too. If you want to schedule a meeting with me through Zoom, we can do that using this link. It adds you to my calendar. You can see when I'm free. Tomorrow, actually Friday, I'm pretty open. So you can click a time, among other options. So let me know what I can do to support you, and good luck in your project this semester.